Wow, good morning. I didn't know I was a celebrity. I like it. So I'm Sarah. I've been around CSL for about 22 years. So when I was asked to give a power talk, I really didn't know what to talk about. But I've got two stories to tell you. My parents started coming to CSL when I was about 4 or 5, and they had always been firm believers in New Thought and big tithers. One day when I was about 6 or 7, I came home and my dad had poker chips out on the table. He was ready to teach me about money. I started getting an allowance of $10 a week, and this was big money for a 7-year-old. However, I had a few caveats. I had to put $1 or 10% into savings, and I had to tithe 10%. He even made me fill out a pledge card. I might have been the youngest pledger ever at 7. So I continued to give 10% of my allowance, and I grew up in this church. When I was 10, I was very clear I wanted a car. Specifically, I wanted a Jeep. When I turned 16, I wanted to drive. When I was about 15, I started looking at cars, and my savings account was now at about $250. My parents said they would probably help. It wasn't much, but I was clear I was going to have a car. I got my permit, took driver's ed, scared the heck out of my parents as I was learning to drive. My 16th birthday came, and my parents said, "Honey, I'm sorry, but we can't buy you a car, but you can use ours whenever you need." And my $300 wasn't going to get me much. I was disappointed, but my intention was very clear, and I had no attachment as to how it would show up. I was going to have a car. Being 16, I didn't pray that much, but I was raised in this church, and so I treated every so often, usually while I was driving. And I held on to that intention. In October, about 6 months after my birthday, my parents came to me and said, "Granddad's going to stop driving, and he wants to give you his car." Now, it wasn't a Jeep, but it was a 1995 bright red Ford Probe, and I loved that car. And to this day, it's my biggest and most concrete demonstration I've ever had. So that's story number 1. Story number 2 is that I moved back to Seattle about 2.5 years ago to work for my dad. I joined Coming of Age again. I started working with the teens. I had started at CBEC a few years prior. I had 13 kids that year, and I had about 5 to 9 consistently showing up on Sundays. But I was, when I moved back, I was lonely. I was 24. I was the boss of a company. I was living with my mom, and I was spending most of my free time here with people over 40 or under 18. I felt incredibly loved, but I also felt isolated. So I treated and I prayed for 2 straight years for community, connection, and abundance. I prayed with the teens, I prayed on my own, I prayed with anybody who would listen to me. Slowly, I started noticing changes in my life, and I was making connections and feeling less and less lonely. But what I also noticed was I wasn't just praying for me, I was praying for all of the communities around me, and a byproduct of the prayers for myself turned into an exponential growth of the teen program. I now have 20 to 25 consistently showing up on Sunday, and 34 at CBEC this year. So the point of my stories is that between giving back to my community that feeds me and setting clear intentions and praying for what I want, I made miracles happen, and for me and all those around me. And I am truly blessed and truly grateful for this opportunity. Thank you. Thank you.